And with that, I want to say thank you and welcome to our SHIP San Diego professional chapter. This is our general body meeting dedicated to professional development. Thank you so much to everybody that's been able to join today. This is June 9th, 2021, Wednesday. Thank you so much for jumping in. Once again, we are recording this session. Hopefully that everybody is okay with that. And next slide, please. Okay, so if you see this flyer here, this is what was sent out. This is what was being promoted. So we are at the general body meeting. I hope you're in the right place, but if you feel that you're not, we still encourage you to stay and listen to this information. Once again, reminder, feel free to share thoughts on the chat. They will be read periodically throughout the meeting, but we do remind you that there is a formal Q&A section at the very end. So if you want to save your questions to that point, you're more than welcome to, but you're more than welcome to continue to write them through the chat at any given point, and we'll monitor and stop and ask that question for you. Next slide, please. With that, I want to say welcome Mark Better. Mark Better, he has been with General Atomics almost 5 years as an L and OD advisor, which means the Learning and Organizational Development Department. He is part of the HR Human Resources Service. He is passionate about work with individuals and teams to help grow or overcome challenges in areas that include career mapping strategies, leadership development, team dynamics, and communications. He grew up in Montreal, Canada, and has lived in San Diego for over 35 years. His wife and Mark enjoy being empty nesters to 4 wonderful daughters. That gives them the time for as much walking in nature as they may get. Mark also loves taking pictures during those walks. With that, I want to say thank you, Mark Better, for joining us. Thank you for being here with SHIP San Diego. Thank you for your presentation. Next slide. Now, here's Mark Better from General Atomics to provide us with insight about career development and growing and managing your career.
Great. Thank you, Lazaro. I really appreciate it. Let me know, can you see the screen now?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. So thank you everyone for being here and coming to hear my presentation. Of all the things that Lazaro listed that I love to work on, career development and helping people doing career coaching is really what I love best. So what you're going to be seeing is kind of a philosophy that I've developed over time, both from reading other career development gurus, my approach, and then also just seeing just working with people and kind of bringing all of that together to provide this information to you. Let me get to the next slide. There we go. So first, when I'm talking with people about career development, it's important to set expectations because many of us have different approaches and different thoughts about what a career path means, especially for people who are maybe starting out in their careers. Most different people have different thoughts about who owns their career. Is it themselves? Is it their managers? Others? So let me lay that out for you right now. So ultimately, the employee owns their own career. So it's really important that he or she know or even have a sense of where they want to be going, either short term or long term. Just being able to have a vision of something. It doesn't mean that where you think you were going to go is where you end up, but just having a goal is a really important part of getting to where you want to go. The manager acts as a coach, an advisor, and an opportunity opener. So they don't own that person, the employee's career. And some people think that they do, but really, you really need to be looking out for your best interest. But a really good manager is going to look out for you also. So they're going to act in the employee's best interest. There's not going to, a lot of people are afraid to go talk to their manager about their careers, especially if it's moving a career in a different direction away from the manager, thinking that maybe that manager will take it the wrong way or get defensive. But most managers, realize that everyone, needs to grow where they need to grow. So that's where when you have a really good manager, you should be able to trust and be able to be vulnerable to say, what it is that you really want to do. And then the other part is actively that person actively engages in that person's career growth. From an organizational standpoint, the organization should be there to provide opportunities for different types of career growth wherever it is that you go. And if you're part of a company and you're looking for new paths to go, either in the area that you're in or in another part of the company, I encourage people to explore their company's employee career site. It's really funny that most people, when they're maybe feeling disengaged, they're looking for new opportunities, they automatically go outside the company and look at other companies' career sites, as opposed to checking their own first. There may be some really good opportunities there. And through your discussions with your manager, there may be opportunities opening up that you're not aware of and maybe even have not even hit that employee career site yet. But finding as much as you can inside the company is really a better way to go, because you're a known brand, they value you, and it allows you to grow and get to know more about the company as opposed to starting from scratch elsewhere. So a company really does need to demonstrate a culture of being open to having employees move around, because the more they move around, the more valuable they become to the company, and frankly, the more value that you have in yourself in being able to grow your experiences and your skills. And then, of course, it's really important that an organization provide resources to help employees grow and develop. And I'll talk more about that later. So it's really important to think differently about career development. It's, as I'll talk about in the next slide, there's a traditional way of thinking about career development. But the reality is all the ones that you see here on this screen are really the more modern ways of thinking about careers. So whether it's a lateral move, enrichment, vertical, exploration within your department, outside of your department, realignment of what your job or your title is to move you ahead, or relocation into a different, that relocation can be within the company. Frankly, it could be even maybe outside of the company. Maybe you've gone as far as you can go with what you can do in your company. But it's the notion of being open to all of these different types of approaches. So the traditional way of thinking about career development is the career ladder. So it's the idea that you're in a particular position. When you're ready to move up, you literally move up, and then you continue to move up over time. The limitation with this is that as you move higher in the organization, there are fewer and fewer positions that are open at those higher levels. So, someone in a different job position may move up and then want to move up into that job 3A area, but they discover that there's a glass ceiling because that position is already filled and there are no opportunities to have another position like that opened up. Better than thinking of a career ladder is this notion of a career lattice. And so the idea is that in a career lattice, you can move up, you can move across, even temporarily move down. So it's that, let's say you're in job 1C. Well, if you're either feeling disengaged or you're looking for new opportunities, moving into a different job that ties into your transferable skills, whether they're directly the same skills as you had in job 1C or different, you can move over there. Other opportunities open up to move around. Perhaps you do move up, but then at that higher level, again, you can move and go back and forth within a department, across departments. So that idea of lateral moves, even though it's lateral, it's really still moving ahead because you're taking on new new could be new skill sets, a new type of work, different than what you've been doing before, even if it's at the same level. So with that gray bar showing that there might be for a while that glass ceiling that prevents you from going higher because someone else is in that position, or there are fewer opportunities up there. By working with management to move back and forth, be aware of other opportunities within your area, that can be very, very valuable for your career growth. Another thing to think about is this notion of going from non-management to management. The reality is that the majority of people's careers are in non-management, and they just continually move up levels, responsibilities. You can be in a lead position without being in a management position. So a lead position is where you're responsible for a team and projects, but it's not sort of the heavy people side that would be found in management. And as most people think about, but people who are interested in going to management go from non-management to a management position. Thing is, though, at some point in the number of people's careers, and probably more than you realize, there are people who really say, you know what, either things have changed in their life, things at work, whatever that is, and they're in a management role and they want to go back to a non-management, but they feel that there's no opportunity to do that. That's just not the way careers go. These days, there's a different way of thinking. The different way of thinking is what's best for you is best for your career. And so even if you are in a management role, there are opportunities to head into a non-management role again. And the important part is talk to your manager, talk to your HR representative. One of the things that stops people from moving from the management to non-management is the feeling that, I'm going to lose my salary and I don't want to do that. The reality is that if you working with your management and HR, there are ways, there are possibilities for being able to move from one way to another that allows you to keep your salary, because companies work by salary ranges. So most of the time things can be worked out. So don't be afraid to, again, talk to your manager, talk to your HR person, just to see how it can work, that you can move from a management to a non-management role and then continue your career. So everything I've talked about, again, if you think about this career lattice type of imagery, makes it a lot easier and satisfying to be able to feel that you don't have to stunt your career growth by not moving in that traditional up approach. So questions to ask yourself when you're not sure about your career direction. So I always advise people to do this. Take a piece of paper, write these things down, and see it in black and white as opposed to just thinking about it. So, thinking about what is it about my job that motivates me and energizes me. Conversely, what are the things that don't motivate me? What could my manager do to make my job more satisfying? There might be things about being given more responsibility. Could be taking on new or additional tasks. Don't be afraid to talk to your manager about that. Unless you say something, he or she won't know. Where do I see myself currently making a difference in my work? Where would I like to be making a difference? Again, you may see things and opportunities that maybe others don't. So by being able to talk about it, again, especially with your manager, that could open up opportunities. Where am I growing, and where do I feel stagnant? In what areas do I like to learn and develop? What's the overall fit between my current position and my interests, values, and career goals? I can tell you, I, for one, have had about 4 different careers, and that's because over time, my interests have changed, my values have changed, and so it was important for my for my career to mirror what those values and interests were. And either, talking to others, my mentor, could be, just colleagues, other people who are maybe in those other positions that I might be interested in. Always talking and using your network to communicate what your interests are, and finding out more is really important. Other things to ask yourself. So what areas within my team or department need improvement that I can support? What keeps me here? What could cause me to leave? Those are the value questions that are really important for you to know. How can my manager better support my success on the job? So there might be things that your manager is not aware of. They're busy with many other things, and you can give him or her that that advice, discussion, that hint. And I wouldn't hint too much. When I say hint, I mean things about letting them know how you feel, and things that maybe you see that they can support you, or ask them about that. And then there are additional tools, training resources, things that come from work. So any of these, when it comes to training and resources, they can be things that you look up on your own and you discover on Google, or other resources, sources of resources. They may be supplied by your company. They may be company training, or they may be something the company can assist through tuition reimbursement. One thing that's really important, though, is to note, sometimes your company can support the types of training that you want. Other times they can't. They either don't have the resources, or they don't have the type of training that you need. There are people that I've met, that I've coached, whose approach is, well, if the company's not paying for it, then I'm not going to do it. Frankly, that's putting a wall in front of yourself that you built. The reality is, if there's some sort of training that's or resource that's going to help you build your skills, grow, it's really important that you invest in yourself. So if it's something that the company is not willing to invest in yourself, your time, your money, because remember, it's all about what you need to get to move ahead. So there are other questions to ask yourself with respect to longer term career direction. So if you hopefully have had an opportunity to answer some of the questions that you saw before, to get a sense of what is next on your career path, ask yourself, what would I like to be doing in the next 2 to 3 years? Where would I like my career to be in 5 years? What would it look like? What would it look like what I'm doing 10 to 15 years from now? Now, the reality is, not everyone can think that far out ahead, and it's okay if you can't think out that far. But at a minimum, that 2 to 3 years is really important. And if you have even a sense of, well, maybe, after that, down the road, I'd like to, whatever that happens to be, whether it's a management position, I'm at a individual contributor now. I'm in a, and I want to be a manager, or I'm in a manager, and 5 years from now, I'd really like to be a director. By having a set of goals, at least gives you the opportunity to do things to get there. So depending on how you've answered each of these questions, have a discussion with your manager, your HR business partner, or a career advisor if you have that within your company or elsewhere. And a career advisor can be a friend, can be a colleague, can be a mentor. And asking the question, okay, based on what I've put down here, how do I get there? So within a company, if you want to, or outside of a company, if you want to explore other types of roles or jobs, it's one great way of figuring out if that's the role for you or what it involves is doing information interviews. So ask your manager or HR business partner for assistance of who to talk to if you don't know. If you do know, go ahead and use your network to open up those connections and ask the questions, set up some time. Be prepared with a list of questions. I always come across people who just kind of want to go in and to start to ask whatever questions comes to mind, or thinks that it's going to be the person they're interviewing who's going to be doing all that talking and telling them everything they need to know. A much better approach is to prepare a list of questions ahead of time, and enough questions to fill the time that you're there, whether it's 30 minutes, 45, 1 hour. Have those questions ready ahead of time, because also the person who you're interviewing is going to be much more impressed with you if they see that you're prepared. So once you've collected all this information, once you've asked yourself these questions, and you have a sense of, okay, what do you want? What is it that you want to do next? Where's that next level going to be for you? It's important to create an individual development plan. Some companies are HR group. It might be a learning group. Like in my case, at General Atomics, I'm part of learning and organizational development. We have individual development plans that we provide people. We have ours paper-based. There are others that are electronic. And so the first thing you want to do is to write down, what are your strengths and gaps? So what are the weaknesses that you have? So typically we deal with, what are your top 5 strengths? What are your top 3 gaps?
Sorry, Mark. Yes. Can you explain? I know that it's individual development plan, but can you quickly give us a brief definition of what that is and how to? I know you're going to go on to how to use it, but what is it and what's it for?
Okay, thank you for that. So an individual development plan is a document that allows you to collect information that says, okay, here are the strengths based on the things I'm going to be talking about in this slide and the next. It's what are the goals that I need to either develop or build in order to achieve my next, whatever that next is. It's then going to have a place for you to discuss or write down. Okay, so if I have a particular goal, then what is the measure of success for that? What does success look like? So for any particular goal, if you achieve that goal, people should be able to see it in some way. So for example, I need to be better at running effective meetings. So the goal would be, improve my meeting skills. What does success look like? That a meeting runs efficiently and everybody is heard. That could be a measure of success. The next part is about, so how do I get these? Or how do I learn these goals? How do I practice these goals? So that's another section of the document. And then, then after that, it's what is it that what methods or what other resources do I need to help with that? Like it could be a mentor, it could be job shadowing somebody, and then how do I follow up to make sure that I achieve these? How do I communicate with my manager, and how often I should communicate with my manager? So the plan takes you from what are my goals, how do I achieve these goals, and then how long should it take for me to get there, and how can my manager support me with that? Did that cover everything, Lazaro?
Yeah, yes, you did. Yes, you did. And if I can add a little bit here for the audience, an IVP for faster saying, it's not a requirement. It is not something that's required by your supervisor or your HR. They don't require this. So it does take effort from the employee, yourself, to go ahead and seek this out, spend some time, plan this out, as the name suggests, plan for you and what the outcome of success means to you in X number of months, years, or whatever, right? And what the attainable, successful goal and execution of this plan is. It is a working document, meaning that let's say in 3 or 6 months you decide, oh, you know what, I don't really want to pursue the management path anymore. You can revise this, sit down, have a conversation again with your manager or human resources and amend this document. it is not set in stone. It is for you to continue your development. This is your individual development plan. It is a book sketch for you to make the plays that you need to make in order for you to advance in your career. But once again, in order for you to move up, you need to put the work in. Nobody else is going to do it. As Mark said, your manager is not going to really push you to do anything that you don't want to. But if you develop this, you're going to show initiative and you're going to be insight. And as the saying goes, out of sight, out of mind. So if you're on their face, if you're continuously talking to them, you're going to be one of the top people that they'll consider for any opportunities, right? For the high school students, I know we have some high school students here. You might be thinking, well, how does this apply for me? Well, you could definitely sketch this for your college career. What do you want to do? How do you want to approach it? How do you want to get that internship? How do you want to get into that research lab? So here you go, start your personal individual development plan, talk to your professors, and go ahead and start going this path. So that's kind of what I wanted to add on this particular topic. Thank you, sir.
No, that's really great and valuable. The I can say that anytime whether it's professional or it's personal, whenever we tell ourselves we're going to do a particular goal, if we don't write it down, more often than not, we kind of just either forget about it or we let it slide. By putting it in writing and then saying, okay, this is the time frame I'm going to take to do this. Then you're drawing a line in the sand, and you're giving yourself a mile marker, so that you're more likely to succeed and grow if you're doing it within this individual development plan or IDP, than if you just think about it but don't really have it written down. So I talked about here the first step. It's kind of going over and identifying what your strengths and your gaps are, and your opportunities and next steps. So the next part, and so I'm glad you told me that, Lazaro, that there are students in watching this too. So if you're in a job, then what you do is you bring this document to your manager, and you bring a copy, so one for you, one for that person, and you have a dialogue. It's not saying, okay, this is what I wrote, but rather to get that other person's opinion. And if you're doing it with a professor and they know you, then this is another way for them to, they can begin to act like as a mentor to you, and use this to get to know you better, and then give you advice on how to get to where you want to go, and how to overcome those gaps and build on those strengths. The other part of the discussion, if you're in a work environment, and for those of you who are students right now, this next part is an important part to keep in mind as you move into the work environment. So when you've been working someplace for a while, and you're looking to move up, and now up doesn't mean that it's from individual contributor to manager. There are different levels even within an individual contributor role. But if you're looking to move from where you are now to someplace else, ask your manager to show you a comparison between the job description you have now and the job description of where you want to go, and have them highlight the gaps. I have this, it's in the bubble here. It says job level modifiers. I'm going to talk about that in a moment. Most people think about moving up as having increased skills or experience, but there's actually much more than that. So what's really important is to discuss with your manager the matching of your current skills and where the gaps are. It's not unusual for people to feel that they have the skills they need to move on, but the manager who understands that new role better can actually articulate what it is that you don't have that you need in order to move on. So job level modifiers. Most people think that in order to move up, that is based on either time in the job or the amount of experience or the type of amount of degrees that you have. The reality is that more often than not, what gets you moving up is increased what I call here strategic behaviors and what I'm calling advanced professional skills. So whether you're starting a new job or taking on just a new role, usually it begins with taking instruction. The next level up is about working independently. As you move on in your careers, whether it's moving into an increasingly management role, manager, middle manager, senior manager, director, or even going from individual contributor to lead, the expectation is that you're going to start doing more initiative. You're going to initiate planning. You're going to be more proactive. The higher you go, the expectation is you're going to be providing solutions as opposed to being told what the solutions are. I coached someone who had been an engineer at General Atomics for almost 10 years, was really smart, was considered like one of the top people to be able to solve or implement a solution. And he was becoming very disengaged. He was being very dissatisfied with his job because he felt that he was hiring people at a higher level than where he was, and he should have been up there. And so I had to talk with him. We talked with his manager and him, and what I put out there was saying, asking the manager, so what are the gaps? What are the things that are stopping this engineer, this brilliant engineer, from moving on? And what was discovered was that the engineer, like I said, was brilliant. He could do anything, fix anything. However, he was always going to his manager looking for the solution, and then he would implement it. Once he understood that what his manager was looking for was this engineer bringing the solutions, and then the role of his manager was just to make sure that he thought everything through, and then said, okay, go ahead and do that. Once the engineer understood that, we created an individual development plan that addressed the different goals of him being more proactive, bringing solutions, had it all written out, and we set a timeline of 6 months. And by the time we got to that 6 months, because he practiced it, because we came up with sort of on-the-job learning exercises, training that he could do, he actually finally made it up to that higher level of manager that he'd been waiting for so long. So it was a surprise to him. And like I said, it's often a surprise to a lot of people that it's those skills that are the ones that you need as you move up. The other thing to note, and this is very important for those of you who are students, there's often the notion that I'm smart, I know what to do, promote me and I'll show you that I can do it. The reality is that for most businesses, what management wants to see first is at the level that you're at, that you can do what needs to be done at a higher level. They don't want to promote you to that level and then find that, oh, we made a mistake. This person actually couldn't handle the work like we thought we could, or they thought they could. So don't get impatient. The important part is if you can show that you can do those advanced skills at the level that you're at, when an opportunity opens up, it means that you're going to be the one that has now demonstrated that you're the one that's ready to go and move to that higher level. So, we've been talking about what that individual development plan looks like. And so here's an example of the one that we use. So based on all the career conversations that you have and development conversations with your manager, and one of the things that you can do proactively is if your manager doesn't normally have those type of conversations with you, if they meet with you one-on-one, or maybe they just do staff meetings, it's okay for you to take, being the owner of your development and the owner of your career, Just say, Mr. Manager, I'd really like to have a meeting with you, a one-on-one meeting with you to discuss my career, to discuss how to grow and be able to, what I need to do to grow into, the next step, the next place that I want to go to. So have that conversation with your manager, identify specific goals, and that includes, what does success look like? That's really important, and make it behavioral. So again, it's not just something that you've achieved a goal because something has changed in your mind, but rather people can see that you're doing things differently. As I mentioned before, the thing about an individual development plan is that it provides structure and a measured way of getting to where you want to go, as opposed to, if you don't have it in this structured manner, kind of it's out there, but here you can say, okay, look, I've achieved this, I've achieved that. Now, having achieved, let's say, your goals doesn't mean that your manager automatically must, move you up to the next level. It's often about, where, what's open at what time. Another thing I want to talk about with the time frame. So it doesn't have to take long to achieve certain goals. If they're easy goals, that can be, done literally in a month and a half. If it's a more complex goal, it could take 3 to 6 months. But if you're working on it every day, through just through different things, activities that you do, then you can achieve them within a reasonable period of time. The other thing that's really important is that when it comes to learning new goals, very often people resort to training. The reality is that 70% of learning happens on the job, and a total of 90% of what's learned comes from that on-the-job learning and getting feedback from your manager and others. So what we do is, after you've written the goals, you'll see the very next criteria that we have here to work with your manager is, what type of stretch assignments, or what type of other assignments or opportunities can you be given that will help you attain that goal, will help you learn that goal. And sometimes learning a goal is not about learning a new goal. It could be reinforcing and growing a strength that you already have. And then marking down a time frame and being realistic. Like I said, if it's, if it can be done in 3 months, 6 months, don't push it out a year, because that means that thing is probably not going to happen. And if it's such a big goal that it would take a year, you're better off breaking it up into smaller amounts. The last thing I'll say about goals is, most people can only really work on 1 to 2 goals at a time. So even if there are more goals that you feel, or your manager feels that you need to learn and grow, prioritize them and start with the first 1 or 2. And then when you achieve those, then you can work on the next ones. And if you've used them all up, as Lazaro said, living is learning, and learning is growth, and we keep continually grow over time. So as you achieve certain goals, look to see, okay, what are the new gaps that I have? What can I put in as my next goal? And if you do this throughout your career, you'll continually grow in the direction that you want to go, and at a good pace. So career development resources, what's out there for you? So as I said earlier, seek out career coaching from your manager, from your HR business partner. Those of you who are either working or those who are going to be going into work, often the thought of an HR person is often thought of as someone you go to when there's a problem, when an employee is a problem. The reality is that, yes, while that's part of the work, a bigger part of the work is helping employees be the best that they can be, or whether you're an individual contributor or manager. So get to know your HR partner, no matter what level you're at, because they know about things happening in the company that maybe others don't. So they're a really good person to network with. Again, a mentor, and I'll talk about how to get a mentor shortly. Your network, your professional organization, like SHIP. You know, be open about talking about your career. Find out how other people got to where they got to be. You'd be fascinated by. I mean, some of the stories, many of the stories are fascinating, and most people don't just go in a straight line in their career growth. It goes in different directions. So that in itself can give you ideas about where you can go, what you can do based on your interests. I'm speaking to the choir right here about join a professional organization, which you've already done, or a special interest group. As you guys already know, because you're here, it helps expand your network within the industry or across industries. Again, it's a great way to get career advice and best practices through meeting presentations. Certainly, once we're back together and you can meet in person and having that one-on-ones with people. Another thing, so when I was in college and I wanted to get into, at the time, it was producing multimedia programs. Believe it or not, that's where I was way back when. I joined a professional organization that was that dealt with that at the time, and I got myself involved on a committee. Eventually, I joined the board, and that's a huge way to jumpstart your career if you are starting out, either in school looking for your first job, in your in a new job and looking to network yourself. When you join the boards, when you join committees, people get to know you. They get to see what your strengths are, what you bring to the table, what your value is. And then when things, open up, if there are job openings somewhere, they're going to know about it. And you'll be the first one on their list of, oh yeah, you're the guy who will be really good because I know based on what you've done in the committee, what you can achieve. Actually, my second job I was able to get that way because of my work on the board or the committee that I was on. And finding a mentor. So a mentor is somebody who you talk to, who can give you advice in a kind of in a strategic way. So coach is someone who you go, and if you need advice on a particular problem, you go to them, they can coach you how to overcome that problem, how to, make the play, so to speak, if you're thinking about a sports metaphor. A mentor is more about someone who they can help you on specific things, but it's more of that they take an interest in you and you can talk to them about a more wide-ranging subject matter about whatever it is in your career. I have a mentor who at different points in my career when I was not sure about certain things or having challenges at work, turn to my mentor to talk to her and find and get her opinion. Some companies have formal mentor programs, others don't, but you don't need a formal mentor program to establish a mentor relationship. Let me take you through some steps that will help you do that. So when wanting to develop a mentor relationship. So first, identify someone or get the name of someone who demonstrates a best practice at something you are interested in learning about. So if it's just sort of a general mentorship, you can certainly approach them and ask them if they could become a mentor, whether it's professor. Typically at work, it wouldn't be your immediate manager, but it would be someone else. But it does help in order to establish the relationship, to have something that you want to ask them, so they have something to connect with you with. If it's someone that you already know, then just make that. Just go to them and say, "Hey, can you help me with whatever that thing is?" If you don't have the relationship with someone, then ask a colleague or a manager or someone to make that introduction. If it's not in person, it can certainly be an email introduction. If it's at one of your, let's say, SHIP meeting, and you're back together in a group, you can approach one person to who you know they have a relationship with this other person and ask to be introduced. Set up a 30-minute meeting. Don't set up a long meeting, but let's say a 30-minute meeting to start to discuss whatever the specific challenge or topic you want advice on. At the start of the meeting, thank the person for taking the time to meet with you. You always want to show appreciation and that you value both their expertise and their time. So state up front, what is it, don't small talk is okay just to kind of get things going, but take control, and at some point soon afterwards, talk about the thing that you're there to get his or her advice on. And that you've either observed or you've heard that they actually do best practices in that area, and so that's why you're going to them to for advice. So be focused on the behavior or information you want the advice on, and it's okay to ask for confidentiality so that so that you can feel that you can open up to talk about any situation that's important to you. After getting their advice, thank them and let them know how valuable that advice was. Again, showing appreciation is really important. If after you've had that meeting and you feel that this was, you'd like to expand that time and have that person be a mentor, then say that you'd like to continue meeting with him or her on a regular basis, that it was really valuable what you learned, and would they be open to becoming a mentor for you? People are always, really feel special when they're asked to be a mentor. Now, they could say, I'm really, really busy. I would love to, but I don't have time. I do a lot of traveling, whatever that is. See if there's a way that maybe that you can, set it up as a phone relationship, and that it's not that you're not going to be doing this, often. Actually, what I would say is ask, what would be okay for a regular basis. Could be once a month, maybe once every 2 weeks, maybe it's an occasional lunch hour. I meet with my mentor every couple of months. We used to do it, we'd meet for lunch. Now we do it on the phone. So it really can be on any type of timetable that works best for you and for that person. If it's something that maybe you have a particular need right now, maybe it helps to meet once a week. Maybe it helps to meet once every couple of weeks. But once you've taken care of whatever that emergency challenge is, space it out and do it so that it works for them and it works for you. It's also, there's something else that happens is that sometimes you're in a mentoring relationship with someone, and maybe after a while it's not, you're not finding it as valuable for whatever reason anymore. It's okay to sort of start to back it off, to maybe you're meeting with them once a month or whatever, and you can say, these have been great. We don't have to do it as often, and you can sort of set up a time, and that would work out for them too. Oh, the other part of it is successful business people typically have more than one mentor. And the reason is that not every mentor can be an expert in everything. So you might find someone who's just really good at general mentorship. They have a really well-rounded set of topics or background. Others have more specialty backgrounds. So it's okay to have multiple mentors that serve different purposes. So that's absolutely fine. So the next step in your career is yours. Remember, you own your career, but not alone. You always have people around you who can help you, who want to help you. So again, whether you are in school right now and it's you and your friends, it's your professor, It's maybe other people that you know in business. It might be a parent's friend. If you're at a job, you've got your colleagues, you have your manager, you have your HR people. You might have a mentor who's in another part of the organization. Whatever that happens to be, never feel that you have to go it alone. Always reach out. Always, make sure that other people know where you want to go. Don't keep it a secret, because by doing that, by communicating that, then when there are openings, there are opportunities, those people who know will help get you there. So I want to thank you very, very much for your time and listening. And now I will open it up to questions.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you for that wonderful presentation. I really enjoyed it, and just to comment a little bit more on that last couple ideas that you mentioned. You mentioned that successful business people do have mentors, and that is correct. But as you mentioned, not every mentor knows everything. And I like to say you should look for different mentors to create your board of director mentorship. So that way you can go to one person for something else, one person for a particular need, and that way you have a plethora of X number of mentors, as long as you can manage it and make use and benefit of the information that they're providing and be acknowledgeable to them, it'll be more successful for your future. So that's a wonderful way of putting it for me, so that you know that you have a board of directors that are guiding you, and you can definitely go and manage that career path for you by bouncing ideas off of those mentors. So thank you so much. Now, as Mark said, we are opening it up for questions from anybody in the audience at this point regarding the topic of managing your career, be it an IDP. If you still have questions about what that is, or mentorship, if you still have a couple questions about that. So don't feel shy. This is your time to ask questions. Yes, sir.
Hey, how you doing, Lázaro?
Hey,
Thank you so much. That was great. But keep in mind, too, this is good information for the managers. Because hearing at this level and, trying to mentor is something I have to start thinking about. It makes a lot of sense.
So thank you for bringing that up. I've actually done this for this type of presentation for Lázaro and other people at General Atomics, and it really depends on the audience, because everything that I said here can be done from the manager's perspective, with respect to, like, when I had those list of questions, asking, having those career conversations with each of your reports, asking them those questions. You'd be surprised how many employees are afraid to say, well, this is what I want to be doing in 3 years. To be able to say, you know what, one day I'd love to have your job. If you as a manager can develop through ongoing one-on-one conversations, develop a sense of trust where people can feel comfortable opening up, then these type of conversations, when you ask those questions, will really provide a lot of good information. From a manager's standpoint, the other thing I would actually recommend is, if you've never done it before, is to get the resumes of all your direct reports. It's surprising how often someone hires someone for a particular job and assumes that that's their experience, that's what they know what to do. And when you look at the resume and you go, oh my God, they not only can do this, they can do this, that, and that. But I never knew that, because that was a past experience that was not needed on this job, but I can certainly use that. So that's another bit of advice from a career standpoint for managers to take responsibility and do.
Yeah, I came in a little late. But what are your thoughts about annual performance assessments and how to best do that? Because I know you were saying you should only concentrate on 1 or 2 goals, but I think a lot of managers expect a lot more.
So Actually, okay, so there's the annual performance review, which some companies do. Many of them are not doing anymore. They're doing it more as sort of ongoing feedback. Um, what I actually was, what I would advocate outside of the performance. So the whole thing about performance reviews, it's about how that employee did that year, what they brought to the table, what they accomplished, maybe what they could be doing better, what's next for them, what does the manager see for them next in terms of goals. On top of that, of the annual review, what I would highly advise, and I advise people managers at General Atomic, is that a couple of times a year, have a career conversation with your employee, as opposed to just the performance review, because those are two different things. Often they're pulled in together, but by having a career conversation with them a couple of times a year, and one of those times could be during the performance review, but another time also, you have a better sense of what it is that your employee wants. So as you're setting up goals for the next year, you'll be more informed about what it is that this person wants, and maybe that's changed over time. So you might be directing them in a certain direction, and if you're not aware of what their career aspirations are, you might be inadvertently causing them to go to some sort of dead end that they're going to say, "I'm done with this place."
Yeah, that's a great point. Thank you so much. I'll leave it open to others.
Welcome.
I want to add this, everybody here for the most part is geared towards STEM engineering predominantly. So this topic at this point, depending on your career level, might be a little daunting to go ahead and take charge of a career, because you're thinking as a student in high school, you're thinking, well, I just want to be an engineer, period. But you don't really have anything further than that, right? And as an early career engineer, you're thinking, well, I just want to focus on creating and making and building. But as you grow older, mid-level career engineer, you start thinking, well, I really want to move up to the next level. And you never really spent the time beforehand figuring out what the process was or how to even go about an IDP, because that was never thought. So that's why we brought this session to everybody here, so that at least you heard the terminology, at least you know what it is, and that way you can start working on this. Because the more you exercise it, the more you work it, the more proficient you'll be at managing your own career using the tools that are available to you at the industry level. That's why we're here. And that's why SHPE San Diego brought Mark Vetter to present this information in a digestible, friendly manner, so that you can have the opportunity to ask any questions here at any given point, and then take it back to your corporations and apply it. And believe me, if you go back tomorrow or Monday and say to your hiring manager, hey, I would like to set up a meeting to discuss my career development, and I have an IDP, they're going to look at you with a different set of eyes, and they're going to be like, you're serious about growing in this company. Let's sit down and talk about it. And be open. Where do you see yourself, as Mark said, in a couple months, in a year or two? And where do you see yourself leading projects? And that way the managers will know, oh, okay, I never thought about that. I never thought about it that way for you, but if this is the way you want to do it, let me see what I can do, and let's try it out. So that way you show initiative. And this is what it's all about: showing initiative, being proactive, and moving forward, taking charge of your own career path. So now, if anybody has any questions, Mark Vetter's here to answer any of
those. Mark, great presentation. Can
Thank
you hear
you.
me?
Yes, I can.
Question. What about, what do you recommend as far as preparation for and seeking executive level positions?
Expand on that. When you say what should you be doing, researching what, so you're in a manager position and you want to get to a executive position like director or higher?
Exactly.
So, actually using the IDP, one of the things that you should do is, well, one is, do you understand what that role is about? So doing an information interview with, in fact, at any level, if you're trying to figure out what that position is truly about, asking for an information interview is a really, really good way of doing it. And to Lazaro's point, if you do that within your own organization, then people at that higher level now know that you have an interest in that. And an interest in that, you're not just saying, I want that position and give it to me or whatever. You have an opportunity to better understand what does that role mean within the company. You can ask them, so tell me, how did you get to the position that you're at? How did you get to this position? That's a really good question to ask anybody. How did you get there? So that they can start to, so that you can start to get information and write down the notes that they're telling you. What was their path to get there? What did they need to do? A great question is, what do you now know that you didn't know at the beginning of you being in this position that you wish you did know? Those will give you all sorts of really great insights into into what that role is about. What took that executive by surprise that they had to learn over time that now you're aware of and can start doing at the beginning. And then the IDP, once you have that background information, then you can start using the IDP and working with your HR person, with your manager to say, okay, if I know that I have to have these particular skill sets, remember I talked about the job level modifiers. It's not about being a better engineer, a smarter engineer, being more better technically than everyone else. On the contrary, typically the higher you go, the less you're touching the technology and the more you're relying on other people. So part of moving up is having to change your mindset from being the person who's the doer to the person who is working through others. And the more successful managers and then executives are those people who are able to let go and be able to delegate and run things through other people doing things as opposed to you are. So, but a great first step is to do information interview or information interviews, and then use the IDP to start creating goals to slowly get you there.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
It's a great response. I would also like to add for Cesar here, there's various ERG groups, employee resource groups within the corporation that also bring wonderful connections and coffee sessions or chats with executive level individuals. And that way, if you jump in there and you can ask questions of them, if the corporation that you work for has those type of ERGs and bring those type of executive individuals, you can definitely ask questions similar to what Mark mentioned and make the connection there with them and be able to establish that rapport with them in a personal basis, because now you've broken the ice and gotten introduced to them to that respect. So at least I think that's also an additional benefit for business resource groups or employee resource groups, however they are like to be called now, depending on where you're at. So that's an additional bonus that I might throw in there. So hopefully that makes sense. Do we have any other questions at this time for Mr. Mark Better?
Hey, Lázaro, this is Rosa.
Hello,
I'll
Rosa.
ask a question.
Welcome. Yeah,
Thank
go
you.
ahead.
And Mark, thank you for that great presentation and the way you kind of put a really complex topic in a nice framework. I think, what you touched on earlier on going up to an executive level and for managers, as a manager, some of the hardest feedback to give is not necessarily when people lack technical skills. When somebody is lacking people skills, personable skills, things like that, what are your best strategies to give that kind of feedback, because it can get a little sensitive? And then, how do you, what are some of your best strategies to give that feedback when it's probably going to be sensitive to their personality and, their way of being?
So to approach difficult feedback conversations like that, there are, what you do is you start with them as a person to, talk about the things that that they are good at. What is it they bring to the table? What is it that you see in them, and that you really want to help them grow? As a result, you want to give them some feedback that you feel will be really helpful for them to, in their ability to grow, be better connected, whatever that thing happens to be. That if you're giving feedback, you're doing it because you want to help them overcome a particular hurdle that they have, something that they're not aware of. And so if you couch it in terms of, you really value them, what they do, it might be, the feedback might have to do with something where maybe they didn't treat someone right, and because they were under a lot of pressure. So you can start with a conversation about, you really empathize about what they're going through, the stress that they're under, and you understand that. But I want to give you some feedback because you may not be aware of the fact that whatever that thing is. So first, find something that you can connect with them on a personal level about who they are, what the type of person they are, what type of value they bring, or that you empathize with them about something. And then based on that, you can bring in the feedback.
Awesome. Thank you.
Welcome.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for all the questions that we had. Thank you, Mark, for responding to all of them and for presenting a wonderful set of information, as was mentioned, in a well, concise manner and very friendly, digestible format. Thank you so much.